Okay, fellas. Y'all ready? Because I think it's about damn time for another episode of What You Spinnin'. It's What You Spinnin' episode 66. I'm Dorian, joined as always by Jake and Matt. We're all here on a beautiful Saturday from our homes. Jake's patient zero. Matt and I are Jay chilling, bald and beautiful as ever. But how you fellas doing?
Doing good. Jake's haggard.
Okay. For what it's worth, I'm here. I'm alive.
Yeah.
But we'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll make it through. We're happy. Thank you for toughing it out, sticking it through to crank out an episode with us.
Yeah, thank you. Doing that.
That's have to. We have.
It's dedication.
Dedication. All right. Hell yeah. Well, I'm super stoked for today's topics. Do we just want to dive right in, or is anybody have anything cool music-wise that they want to share?
Ooh, something funny. French Montana dropped an album that's like 6 hours long or something. Well, it's not really 6 hours long, but it's like there's like 10 remixes to each song.
What the fuck?
Yeah. It's stupid. It's fucking stupid.
That's just silly.
That's wild.
It's really dumb. I thought that was just funny. I was like, oh, there's a instrumental version, and then there's a acapella version, and then there's a remix version, and then there's like 3 other versions. I'm like, this is stupid.
He just did, he did the acapella so that way people would remake the song for him.
Yeah,
that's so weird.
It's dumb. And I guess in other news, Schoolboy Q is album ready, I think, in March, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Blue
March
Lips.
1st.
Yeah.
March 1st, like fucking Friday?
Or
something. Yeah. Yeah, next Friday. Speaking of Schoolboy Q, I went back and listened to some 2015, 2016 Top Dog cuts, To Pimp a Butterfly from Kendrick, and then Blank Face by Schoolboy Q, and I was just like, God damn, I've just been going back and revisiting random pieces, and I was like, damn, these are fucking intense albums. Like, these are just so heavy, like, great. Schoolboy Q just rapping about being a Crip for fucking 17 songs. It's like, God damn, dude, hell yeah. But no, other than that, just these 3 albums, man. Wild picks when you think about it.
Wild.
Shall we then?
Let's, yeah. Why not?
Jump in.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump in with Jake's pick. What you got for me, big fella?
Yeah, so Curtis Mayfield, 1972 Superfly. It's the soundtrack to the movie that also is titled the same name, Superfly. There's some shots of the movie. The soundtrack is actually, funny enough, like way more recognizable than the film. And it was a lot more successful than the film. The film's pretty funny, pretty good. I watched it this morning again, just because why not? But it's like some soul, some funk. It's very early 70s. It has that feel. It's some good stuff. I like soul and funk and jazz and kind of going in that area, that genre. It's more my field, but yeah, what are your guys' takeaways from this one?
Yeah, I mean, fuck, man, it is a Superfly perfect title. I mean, it's oozing with, just what's it called, soul glow. That it's just like it's just so 70s, and it is, Curtis Mayfield doing his thing, and it's really that genre and like that era of music, like at its peak, with Pusher Man and everything. That's like one of the most iconic songs from that era and from that genre. How many times has that been sampled on albums that we've talked about on this podcast? Like, so it's really cool to get to like cover this and kind of dive into this genre again, because we kind of flirted with it before. So I loved it.
Yeah, I love Curtis Mayfield. I feel like him and Marvin Gaye were like that staple of the early 70s, you know, putting soul and funk on the map and making it more mainstream. And I think they both contributed a lot lyrically and musically. And you can kind of hear it in both their deliveries, the soulfulness behind their voices. And his lyrics on this album are, you know, about the poverty issues and the drug issues. It's not like a happy album or trying to like glorify anything about pimping. It's kind of it's a sad lyrical album, but the music is so powerful. I think it has a great message. And I think coming out at the time it did in the early 70s with Marvin Gaye, like with What's Going On, that album being huge, those two just set it off. And I think since then it's been getting better and better, but they definitely, you know, were the forefront of funk and soul for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. This album, and along with the film, it like kind of pioneered like blaxploitation films, and then being like just a growing like theme in music, especially in movies that were like culturally appropriated to that genre. And yeah, it feels like it was made for the album. Like the album, like you hear it all throughout the movie, and it like in places where like it matches perfectly, and everything about it and every setting on the film, it goes like hand in hand. It has that very old school like 70s, like, you know, they say like jive techies and, you know, all this stuff and cocaine and hustling, but at the same time, yeah, the message behind everything, it's you know, it's for a deeper meaning, a deeper sense, especially what was going on back then. And it was still a growing issue. But yeah, besides that, like in a lyrical and, you know, a musical standpoint, it's very well made. It had a big pivot for soul music and funk music. Curtis Mayfield, he was this being his third album, it was already getting success off of Curtis. This just kind of ramped it up a whole lot more, and it made him to go on to do other soundtracks for other movies too. So it helped everyone out, and it helped the genre out a lot at the time.
There's something to be said too about just driving like at night, slowly listening to Fred. That song is just so like, I don't know, it's just classic. And that was a huge single on this album too. I think that was one of the biggest in this album. Flew off the shelves, and I just set him off. But that song, I love that song.
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff within this album that you know, as I mentioned earlier, like gets sampled, but then there's also like kind of musical like musical runs that ended up being popularized. Like speaking of Freddie's Dead, like that dun 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 dun, like that little sequence, like that pattern has been done so many times over since. I feel like you hear that all the time, especially within this genre. And so it is, you know, like you said, Jake, it did really do a lot for it, you know, because it kind of it's a cornerstone within, you know, the early 70s and the funk and soul movement. And it is kind of funny if you think about it. Like, I feel like it's funny to think about Curtis Mayfield and Marvin Gaye, because for some reason, I feel like Marvin Gaye, it's like, yeah, this is like smooth, you know, sensual kind of stuff. But then Curtis Mayfield, it kind of is as well. But it's like, this is like scumbaggy. Like it kind of has like a little layer of like, it is funk. Like it's got kind of like a extra funkiness to it that it's like, it's kind of grimier, you know, it's not as, and so it's
like soul.
Funny. What was that?
Soul with the backhand. You know?
Yes, exactly. And I love it. And this album is oozing with that. You know, it's like he had to title something "Love Song" in parentheses, and it's like, we got it, man. We understood. Like we didn't need the extra parenthetical. So no, just what this did for the genre, you're right, is impressive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even with some of the song titles, it's you know, like Pusher Man, like everyone knows what that's referring to. The junkie chase, that's like perfect in a scene where like he's running after some guy that like just mugged him in the alley. Like it goes through scenes where they're running through the street and running through apartments and all this stuff. and Superfly, it's just like iconic for the soundtrack for it to go with the movie hand in hand. And then even afterwards, they had like a couple spin-offs, and they just made one like in 2018, I want to say, and another Superfly. So it's still held on, and people have tried bringing it back and doing different spin-offs of it. But yeah, culturally, it had a big impact. Musically, it kind of launched what he already was. Excuse me, how big he already was, Curtis Mayfield, and just also the leading actors in this, like Ron O'Neill, as the main protagonist. Like, it also gave him a lot of recognition. So yeah, it was a great one. I've always loved listening to this. It was funny when we would work together. I would play Pusher Man every now and then, and I'd be like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't play this here when we're working," but every now and then I had to slip in a couple songs in rotation. So, but yeah, it's been a fan favorite of mine for the longest.
For good reason too, man. Like, there's even the little instrumentals like Junkie Chase, and then what is it? Think,
Yep.
like just you get that classic like funk like riff that just it's just so classic, man. Like, I can't help but think of like, a 71 like Chevy just like jumping railroad tracks and like getting chased by a cop car, and like bottoming out. Like, I haven't seen the movie, but I assume that there's like it's got to be
Mm-hmm.
something like that, because it's all that makes me think about, is exactly what you've described. It's like, yeah, it makes sense as to why, they go hand in hand like that.
No, definitely. Yeah, if we got nothing else, I got top threes that I can get into.
We could.
So honorable mention for me, I'm gonna go Freddy's Dead. I love that song. It was probably the biggest song on the album when it came out. Top three, I'm gonna go Junkie Chase. I love that, and it just like in my head, it's just like you can see it, like or you can already envision. Even though if you haven't seen the movie, you could still envision just what that song means. It paints a perfect picture. Give Me Your Love, and then my favorite song. It's always been Pusher Man. I love that song.
Mhm.
That little bongos on it. It's perfect.
Yeah, a well put together start to finish. With the instrumentals in there, it added a lot more to the album. I find those to be my favorite ones. My honorable mention was Think. That was a great way to end the album. Then 3, 2, 1. I got Freddy's Dead as number 3. Give Me Your Love is number 2. And I like Pusher Man. It's just a classic Superfly song. Can't go wrong with that one.
Yep. I think we all agree on at least one thing here. Honorable mentions for me, no Thing on Me, and second one, Give Me All Your Love. And then number 3, Junkie Chase. Number 2, Freddy's Dead. And number 1, Pusher Man. Just can't get over that bass line. And Jake, you said it first, the fucking bongos, man. It's just dumb. It's too good. Shout out Curtis Mayfield. Shout out Jake for picking this one.
Yeah, good album.
Hell yeah. Well, that was 1972, right?
Yep.
1972's Superfly by Curtis Mayfield, the soundtrack for the movie of the same name. Go ahead and give that a watch. I know I definitely will. Classic funk and soul shit. It's Whatchu Spinnin' episode 66. We'll be right back to dive into Mets. Peace. Not the best quality, I think, but we'll see. It's on the list for sure. But anyway, enough about me. We'll get to that in a minute. It's time to talk about Matt's pick for this week. One I'm particularly interested in chatting about. What you got for me, big fella?
I went back to the year 1989 with an industrial music pick, kind of a pioneer in that music genre. It's going to be Ministry's album, The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste, from 1989 again. Ministry is a band that kind of came into their own in the early 80s through like early poppy music and then kind of changed to industrial music in a good way. And this is one of their first 3 albums that kind of set that frontier of industrial music. This is heavy and a lot of sample heavy music, a lot of movie dialogue with sample. It has everything in there. And I think they kind of set the bar for that kind of music early on. Other bands that we like Floater, Primus, numerous other bands kind of took from them as far as samples go and run with it. But Ministry is a unique band. They can be heavy at times, a little too heavy, but they can also be kind of dreamy. And I think the instrumental songs on this album kind of showcase that a little bit. Al Jorgensen's a great musician, been through a lot. I read his autobiography, and he's an interesting guy, definitely a smart guy. Been through a lot, and I think he's able to portray that through his music very well. And he's still doing it today. I'm going to go see them live next week here in Eugene at the McDonald Theater, and excited to see that show. What did you guys think of the album?
I liked it. My first introduction to Ministry, I was reading online that a lot of people kind of, it's like heralded as one of their best albums. I could see why, dude. The sampling, I caught that almost right away. The use of sampling that they have was really neat, and it felt like ahead of its time at first. Like this, in some ways, sounded like White Zombie and Rob Zombie. Some songs, I was like, why does this sound familiar? When this came out like 10 years before that did, and for this to be like in the late 80s, it very much pioneered their genre. And it's another one of those albums that, it's short and sweet, but it's right to the point. It's right in your face. And they don't hold back on it. And it's good.
Yeah. I mean, you were right. It is heralded as one of the pioneering albums in the industrial genre. And Matt, you said it perfectly. Like, this album in Ministry kind of as a whole crawled so a lot of the bands that we've covered on here before could walk. You know what I mean? Like a sample heavy industrial act coming out in 1989 is weird. Like, to think that the genre didn't really like gain traction until the late 90s. So you have something as intense industrial and as heavy as this coming out in 89 is like, what the fuck was going on in 1989, man? Like, it predated Nirvana, it predated Pearl Jam, like, what the fuck? And then Hellbilly Deluxe doesn't come out until 14 years after that. Like, what the fuck? Like, Rammstein? Are you kidding? Like, that's what's wild to think about, right? Is that how much it does, Jake, it does sound like a bunch of other stuff, because it's like, oh yeah, because this is like, they all bit this album, like they were just replicating this basically, which, in a different way, obviously, but there's all sorts of stuff on here that I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, yeah, Rammstein had to be listening to this, Marilyn Manson had to be listening to this, like, throw a dart at anybody in that realm, and it's like, yeah, A Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste was like their favorite album in high school or something,
I like the guitars too, the use of guitars and drums. I think they had to get 2 drummers to finish this album at one point, but the guitars are, I don't know, you hear the guitars and you kind of know it's Ministry. It's that crunchy, and I hate that word industrial, but that's the vibe they have. It's all about that guitar noise, and they do it so well. I love listening to them. It's a good way to pump yourself up for any event. You listen to this album and you're ready to go.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's and one thing that I did like about it that was an interesting, like, the way it was mixed to me was kind of interesting. Like, the vocal track is kind of buried behind this like just wall of noise. Like, like the guitars are really just creating like this hectic wall that it just looks like TV static. It's just like ones and zeros are just going by, and then Al Jorgensen's vocals is just like kind of doesn't get buried necessarily, but it is kind of like lower in the mix, which is interesting.
It can be faint on some of the tracks. You almost want to hear it more, but at the same time, the music is so well together and it blends really well.
Right. It's like it shouldn't work as well as it does. You know what I mean? Like not being able to hear that vocal, it's like, oh yeah, I do want more of it, but then it's like that's kind of part of the charm of it, really. It kind of adds to the feng shui or whatever fucking term you want to say. It like kind of adds to the element of it, the appeal.
And the instrumentals too. I feel like the sampling that they did within those two songs, whether it was like Faith Collapsing or Dream Song, they just to do it well, to blend, a sample and music. They did it just A+. Like there's no flaws when they did that. Those two songs did a great job in them.
It's crazy too. Like the main guy Al, like his longevity that he's had in this band and like his commitment, because he's been with it since the start, right? And they're like almost like 15 albums in right now, and they're about to, it looks like, release another one, and they're still touring. Like that's nuts, dude. And they've had like through multiple lineups changes in their group. Like I was looking at the Wikipedia page, but he's like just stuck with it the whole time. That's fucking commitment, dude. And that's love of your craft and what you're doing, and that's recognized, and that says something a lot for him as an artist, still doing it, still making music, and touring, doing shows. It shows a lot.
It does, because I didn't realize that was something I didn't even know about Ministry. I thought it was like a band. I didn't realize that he was pulling what I call pulling a Trent Reznor and being a one-man band. I thought it was like a full-on thing. I didn't realize that this album was basically him and two different bassists and like two different drummers. Like he recorded like a lot. I don't know. That is what makes it so much more interesting to me. It's like, how the fuck, like, what was going on? And then you look into the backstory of like him at the time, and you're like, oh, he was not within his mind. He was fucked up.
Not at all. Chasing musicians out the studio with a chair, trying to hit him over the head because they don't like the way the song sounds. But you can hear it in the music. But they did it so well, to come out with an album like that. And I think in '89 it was probably hard to catch on to for a lot of people. I think it's more appreciated now. Like with what you said, Dorian, like Manson was probably this, other artists were probably listening to this. This is a staple for them. So definitely set the tone for that genre and beyond.
Right, because it's still crazy to me to think about it, right? Is because it sounds like a bunch of stuff that came out in like 2000. Like you could have told me this came out in 2004, and I'd be like, for sure, yeah, absolutely. And then you're like 1989, and it's like, no, that's like when Def Leppard was still doing shit, right? Like, no, like this didn't come out then. And it's like, yeah, it fucking did. And so that's wild that it was like a time release pill, like you didn't see the influence that it actually had until 10, 15 years later, which is, like I've said it multiple times, but it's so wild to think about. Like you had a whole other movement happen before the industrial new metal movement came around, because you could even say that Ministry influenced that movement within metal music. And so it's like you had grunge and everything being like as huge as it is, way more popular than industrial music ever has been. And it lasted 5 years of like main popularity, and then industrial came after it. It's like, how the fuck, man? Like we missed the boat. We let something else grow and fall right before our eyes. And then it's like, oh yeah, I remember Ministry from 1989. Oh yeah, that shit actually kind of kicks ass. And now here's 17 bands that sound like that. So
I'm glad you guys liked it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up, man. You had mentioned, remember when we went bowling when Jake got promoted, and you rode in my car. I played a Ghost Main song, and you said this sounds like Ministry, and I was like, oh, okay. I've never listened to Ministry, and I think I might have heard Thieves or something based off of that conversation. So I'm glad that we finally got to cover like a full album of theirs. When you brought this up, I was like, fucking finally. I've been waiting for him to bring this one up. So thanks for bringing it up. I fucking thoroughly enjoyed it. In case you couldn't tell by my industrial metal diatribe I just went on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Do you want to dive into top threes? You guys got any closing arguments?
I don't. I just went on my closing argument, so I'm good. So
no, that was good. I really liked it. Another one to throw in the books of artists that I hear of a lot but never actually listen to. So, and that show, you have to let me know how it goes because it sounds like it's gonna be a fucking blast.
It's gonna be nuts. That's gonna be sick, dude.
I've got a great seat. I'll be in the balcony just watching below. Those crazy.
It's gonna be so sick. Fuck yeah, man. Let's top three it up. Hit it, baby.
Cool. Honorable mention, kind of a duo. I got Dream Song and Faith Collapsing. Number 3, So What? Real fun track there. I like that song lyrically for what it stands for and whatnot. Number 2, we didn't really talk about this song at all, but I think it's a cool thing. Test with K-Light doing the hip hop rendition of his bars. I guess they were in the same studio recording together, and I think Al went over to him and liked what he was doing, so he invited him back over, and that's how this song came to fruition. It's just I like the message behind that song. And then title track, or not the title track, but the beginning track, Thieves, is my favorite. It sets the tone, the Full Metal Jacket sample. It's just all over the place. It's so good. It's a song I can play over and over again, never get tired of.
Hell yeah, brother. Yeah, great picks. Honorable mentions for me, Never Believe. Really liked that. I felt like the song, the instrumentation almost didn't work at all together, but it did. Like it was bordering on being just the most chaotic thing I've ever listened to in my life, but it worked. And it was like, I was like, only this could, you know what I mean? I was like, you can't insert any of those parts into any other piece of music and have them work. I was like, so that's wild. Anyway, Breathe, the chanty vocals on that. Breathe, You Fucker. Liked that as well. Number 3 for me was Thieves. Love that song. Thought it was a great way to open the album. Number 2, So What? Love that song. Great bass line on that. I was telling Jacob, by the time I was done listening to the albums this morning for my notes, I just had my bass in my lap and was just learning bass lines off of y'all's albums. So I did. I learned So What? That was really fun. And then Cannibal Song was the first one I did, but that was like the night you introduced me to this album. So Cannibal Song was number 1, my favorite one. Really liked that. Kind of had a jungly feel to it. And Matt, you will either hate this or agree with me. He kind of hits some like Rob Halford like high notes with his vocal like screams on that. And it fucking does something for me. I'm like, that's impressive. I love that. So shout out Cannibal Song, my favorite off the album.
Nice.
Hell yeah, man.
I'm seeing a trend. We have like almost all of us the same songs in the top 3. Honorable mention for me, I'm gonna go Thieves. I like that, especially for an intro and an album. An intro is always the first statement, and they nailed it. Number 3, I'm going Cannibal Song. Number 2, Test. I love that hip hop that they add into it. And then my favorite song, So What?
Nice.
So What, man? So What? Great album. Also, I did like an acronym for your album to put it in my notes. And it's TMIATTTT. The mind is a terrible thing to taste. Yeah.
I did the same thing.
I was like, that's hilarious. Oh, fuck yeah. I'm glad you're on the same page.
Yep.
Fuck yeah. So that was 1989's The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste by Ministry. Matt's pick for this week, episode 66 of Whatchu Spinnin. We'll be right back to wrap it up and talk about my pick. It's Whatchu Spinnin. Peace. Hell yeah.
Oh.
Well, fellas, let's go ahead and wrap this bad baby up. Talk about my pick for this week. One that, like I said when I brought it up, it's at least worth talking about. So I'm excited to hear what y'all have to say about it. It's 2014's Wolf Girl by Machine Girl. At the time was just a producer, electronic artist. A year later, he added a percussionist to the mix. Anyway, I have other things to say about it to point out, but what do y'all think about it?
Have you had this album for a while? Have you known about it for a while, or you just stumble across it?
Stumbled upon it back in November, I want to say.
So kind of newer to you. Okay.
Yeah, kind of newer to me. I knew of the name Machine Girl. They did one of the first things that he did was a series of Jet Set Radio remixes, and I love the soundtracks to those video games. And so he did remixes, and I knew of him from that, but I never listened to him. I just was like, oh, the Machine Girl remixes. And then uh, when I got into day lists, there was this, it's the same one that I've referenced a couple of times, man. It's fucking weird. It's this one day list. It was a Tuesday. It gave me Machine Girl, Grateful Dead,
What?
weird, like Rufus Du Sol, it threw in there. All sorts of shit. Like it was a wild day list, and it was like based off of what I listened to. And I was like, at that time, I was like, I have done all sorts of crazy shit on a Tuesday morning. But anyway, yeah, it gave me Ghost and Frenesy in that playlist, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This is fantastic. And so from then on, I've loved it. So
I love it, dude. I don't know how you found this. I don't know what decided to make you listen to the whole thing, but it's fucking awesome. It's fucking awesome, dude. Um, I like, like beats and breaks and like electronic and house music. This is similar, but it's not.
right.
It has everything, dude. It has like some dubstep drops. It has some funk. It has some techno. It has some jungle music. Like it's all over the place, and it shouldn't work, but it fucking does. It works so fucking good.
It doesn't make sense that it's as good as it is.
Mm-mm.
It's like and it's at times it feels like you had a big project due and you didn't start working on it until the night before it was due, and like it feels rushed and like thrown together, and it's like, but then you really start like digging or like really sitting there and dissecting these songs, and you're like, this is actually fucking genius. Like the way that this song is composed and laid out and put together is actually out of this fucking world. Uh, so it's insane. Like that at base level, it's like, this is like New York basement music. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, and then it's like, no, this is actually very well thought out shit.
Yeah, it sounds like something you would hear like just in like an abandoned warehouse, like where people wear nothing but trench coats and like all black gear, and like it sounds like Dance Dance Revolution music, but like if Satan challenged you to Dance Dance Revolution, this is what would be playing. It's fucking nuts, dude. It's crazy. But I love every part about it, everything about it. It's really cool. I like those like funk aspects. I've been getting more into Brazilian funk. And this kind of resembles a little bit of it, but it's got everything, man, and it flows really well. It's got some really cool samples, like from the first track. It samples Mega Man, like a Mega Man background when it has her vocals of the movie Machine Girl. It's fucking awesome, dude. I'm in love with this. It's really good.
Yeah, when I first put this album on, I was like, oh, I think Ministry is going to be pretty heavy. And the opening track with MG1 hits you in the face, and it never lets up. And it's so good with the sampling again that they do. I mean, they blend it really well together. They use so many different samples from so many different people. I was just thrown off. I'm like, they're sampling Minor Threat, Godspeed You Black Emperor, Tyler's in there, a Ghost in the Shell, Ginger Snaps horror movie. Like, there's so many random samples in the album. I was a fan right away, and I was like, "Fuck yeah!" And each song kind of grows on you. Out by 16, Dead on the Scene, just caught my attention immediately, and kind of helped me just ease into how much I appreciate what they were doing musically. It's really cool how they blended the sampling and just all those different electronic instruments. It's a great album. And it sounds newer than 2014 too. I think it's a great representation of them doing a unique spin on like punk, electro, hardcore. I don't even know what it is. Like, you can't describe it. I saw a lot of definitions online earlier today about people trying to pigeonhole it and put it in a genre. It's so many different things that I don't think you can, honestly. It's so good. I liked it.
It really is. It's almost impossible to put it into anything, and it has just so many. While it does, some tracks you almost think sound the same when you really sit down. That's the thing, is like, to fully appreciate this album, you have to sit down and tear it apart.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you have to take it down to the fact of how like heavily sampled it is. And then, songs like Ghost in particular, I was sitting down, we were in the living room, and I was explaining to my girlfriend, I was like playing this, I was like, oh, I want to listen to some Machine Girl, just kind of get me ready for tomorrow. And I threw on Ghost, and I had to like replay the second half of it and like break it down for her. I was like, no, this is fucking insane, because it just sounds like Sonic the Hedgehog, but this is like, there's layers to this. Like, I was like, because they do this thing where they have, the main like da, 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 and they go away from it and they act like they're building up to a drop, or transitioning into something different, and then they go right back to the main theme. And then when they change to something else, it's like a harsh cut, and it's like, what the fuck? But then it's like, that's actually so genius, because it's like the biggest musical cock tease. You're like, oh, it's going somewhere different. No, right back to that thing with clackers added this time. It's like,
Yeah.
Why? Like, it doesn't make sense.
The best way that I can describe it, also, it kind of sounds like Metal Mario on crack. Like when you get Metal Mario and, like,
yeah,
it sounds like that, but just like insane, just all over the place. And it's fantastic. It's so good. And like the cover art too, of like the wolf with like the kanji on the side and the bottom, like it just adds so many layers to it. It's beautiful, dude.
Yeah, it's something else, man, because it is, the sampling on it and everything really add another layer to it. Then it does, like, there's a little bit of everything on it, and then you think about it and it's like, oh, it makes sense that they ended up doing a video game soundtrack, because that's all that this is. It's Metal Mario on crack. It's you got the star in Mario Kart. It's insert something here. Like, it's wild. It's crazy. And the fact that it's just some guy at this point, but now it's they have the drummer and everything, but it's like, what was going on in 2014? Like, this genre, and it's also, this is like super small. This is also, like Aphex Twin, like, I feel like not many people, like, Aphex Twin is like known but not at the same time. It's kind of weird. And it's like, that's what this genre is. If you said, oh, breaks and beats, somebody would be like, that sounds like British breakfast. But then you play something like Machine Girl and they're like, oh, I know exactly what you're fucking talking about. So it's interesting. It's wildly, I don't know, I think it's influential to some degree. There's got to be, traces of this out there somewhere. I don't know. It makes me want to do crazy shit. So I'm glad that y'all liked it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been listening to this in 2014, because it's, like with dubstep and all that, like that, it had its moment, but this is like similar, but it's not, and it feels like it fits in today's music so much better than it does in 2014. It's strange, it's weird, but I like weird, and I really dig this album.
Hell yeah.
Me too. I feel like a lot of people do too, if we can't even find it. It's been, what you said, repressed 5 different times.
Yeah, like they've done like 5 different drops of it on, like, just through Bandcamp. There's copies of it on Discogs, but it's like there's a massive price jump, because I think people realize, like, if somebody really wants this album, they'll pay $150 for it or whatever. So, but yeah, anyway, I'm glad that y'all liked it. Do we have any closing arguments, or should we top three it up?
I like the pick. Very glad you brought it up. I think we definitely need to talk about it, and I'll be looking out for it too if we can find it.
Oh yeah, I'm glad I was able to. It was one thing I was really trying to get myself not to bring up. I was like, dude, you just can't. I was like, I don't know if it's like sometimes, I don't know if this happens to y'all, but like sometimes I get like gun shy about bringing something up. I'm like, it's gonna be like someone driving the lane in the NBA championships and then just like getting rim checked in open traffic, like it's just like it's like you've got the open dunk and you get rim checked, bringing up an album that flops. So, yeah, I'm glad that I pulled the trigger and brought it up. But let's top three-er. I'll go first. Honorable mentions: Hidden Power. Love a good 9-minute track. Randomly at the end of an album at that. And that one was, out of all of the songs that could have been 9 minutes, it was that one, like it kind of had a more like bonus level, like Sonic the Hedgehog 2 bonus level music. I loved that. Another honorable mention, Frenesi, the second song off of this album I heard. And then 3-2-1, Crystal, the second like full song on this album, insane. There's just, sorry, I can't get over the sampling, like just the music, like the movie sampling off of this. It's like, fuck, man, now I have to go watch Superfly and Machine Girl, which just seems like Japanese Sharknado. Like it seems like one of those like movies.
It is, yeah. A girl with a freaking machine gun arm just trying to avenge her brother. That was like it's fucking, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it sounds sick. I need to figure out how to see it. But anyway, Crystal, number 3. Number 2 was Ghost, and then number 1, as Matt kind of alluded to earlier, Out by 16, Dead on the Scene. Just once that fucking drop like comes in, it's so random, and then just the Rather Be Dead sample is just it's just so good. Great song, great album. Wolf Girl.
Yes. Everything about this, man, it's so good. Honorable mention, I'm going Ionic Funk, 20XX battle music. The first actual song that I heard, like I heard the first one and it's just kind of an intro, but this like was the jump, I feel like, to the album, and it's right in your face, right on the get. 3-2-1, number 3, I'm going Out by 16, Dead on the Scene, fantastic song. Number 2, Free Will. And then my favorite song, Ginger Claps. Man, I could not get enough of Ginger Claps. I love that song, and then it goes right into Ghost, and then it just, this whole album just snowballs into itself. It's so good.
Yeah. You're right though, like once you get into Ginger Claps, it really does start to really go. But yeah, you're right.
For me, honorable mention would be the opener, MG1, sets the tone early on, and it just opens the door to this album. Then 3-2-1, Hidden Power. I like that track. Number 2, Ginger Claps, and then of course Out by 16, Dead on the Scene was my favorite track. Really cool pick, unique. I'm glad you brought it up, Dorian.
Hell yeah, I'm glad that y'all loved it as much as I did. Once again, shout out that day list, man. I don't know, like it's crazy. This one random day list spawned a lot of shit. But yeah, that was Wolf Girl by Machine Girl. And as one of the samples says, if you like crazy Japanese movies, then Machine Girl's definitely for you. But I'll add something to that. If you like Sonic the Hedgehog, go ahead and fucking listen to this album. It's fantastic. That was my pick for this week. This episode 66 of Whatchu Spinnin'. We'll be right back to introduce what's coming next time. Peace. Okay. It's time for everybody's favorite piece of business here on the streets of Whatchu Spinnin'. It's time to let y'all know what's coming up next time around. We go in the order that we covered today's albums in, which means, Jake, my friend, what you got for me? Patient Zero. What's coming next time?
Yes. So this is an artist that we've talked about both individually before, multiple times. This is 2014's Freddie Gibbs and Madlib Pinata.
Ooh, yes.
2014. This is one of the renditions of it. There's multiple covers of it. Going back to hip hop, it's been a while since we brought up hip hop, and I feel like this is one definitely should have come up long ago. So
yes,
yeah, Madlib and Freddie Gibbs, Pinata.
Nice. I'm gonna stick in the '80s again, and so like go in unison with the Ministry show I'm going to. I'm gonna bring up this artist, which I brought up once before. Second album from 1980, Telecon by Gary Newman. Woo! Telecon, yes.
Oh, I'm making an audible. I'm doing an audible.
Audible, all right.
It's Revisit Episode Part 2, baby boy.
Uh-oh.
Where is it? And I think, Jake, you might have one album by this guy that you want to bring up, but if not, this is me putting a cap on Kendrick Lamar. It's To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. It's a Revisit Episode 2.0, baby boys.
Yeah.
Damn.
It happened again.
The hip hop powerhouse in this, dude. Oh my god.
Yeah. I was like, if Matt's gonna revisit and Jake's doing a revisit, I had to talk myself off of a ledge of not doing that album this morning. So yeah, I'll take a break from doing hardcore stuff and I'll go hip hop with you. So yeah. A little drama here. It's a little WWE action on Whatchu Spinnin. Hell yeah. No, that's gonna be sick. Two hip hop albums for the first time since episode shit. I looked back, like it's been a while. We haven't done hip hop for a while. Since the bracket. So that'll be fun. And then some good old Newman. We love some G. We love some Gare Bear. And love that you did that right before, right around you going to see him. Like, that'll be fucking cool.
Yeah.
So I look forward to hearing how that show goes. I look forward to listening to some Gary Newman and then obviously Pinata and then Kendrick. But yeah, anything we want to say to the people?
Be safe out there. Listen to music. Yeah. It's so much good music out there. Go find it. It's waiting for you.
Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to listen to stuff.
Do it.
Hell yeah. It's Whatchu Spinnin, episode 66. I'm Dorian. That's Jake. That's Matt. Follow us on Instagram at Whatchu Spinnin. Follow me at Dorian Dilly at Vinyl Tables. Find us everywhere you can get podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Apple. I did a Google search and there's like random podcast things that because we have an RSS feed, we're now on. So shout out to that. Things are looking good. Last episode did really well. Be a friend, tell a friend, tell someone you love them, give somebody a hug, give them a high five, and eat some good food. Peace out.
With